Today I'm going to be sharing with you 3 Bible verses that I believe every Christian should know, and we are going to start right now. Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. If you're looking for a place where you could grow and learn the Bible in a way that you may not have learned the Bible before, make sure to subscribe right now and hit that notification bell so that you would not miss an upload. Now, without further to say or do, let's get right into our video. Now, the first verse that I want to bring to your attention is Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8. And it says this: "For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing. It is the gift of God." So we see here that it is by grace. And what grace is simply God's unmerited favor. You see, what God has done is He has given us something that we did not earn. We did not earn, nor did we work for that gift that God has given us. So by grace, by that gift that God has given us, we have been saved. And then He goes on to say that we have been saved by grace through faith. Faith is basically putting your hope and trust in something or someone. And in this case, as believers, our faith is firmly placed on Christ. We firmly 100% trust in Him. And this is a critical passage, as I said, for every Christian to know. Because what Paul highlights later on is he says, so that no man could boast. We have not been saved by works, by church attendance, by being a good guy or being a good girl. No, we are saved solely on what Christ has done on our behalf. And this ought to take pressure off of us. The problem with putting hope in self is that when you fail, and guess what? You will fail. And guess what? Every day you fail, you are going to look to yourself for salvation, and you're going to become very discouraged and burnt out, and sense that God doesn't want anything to do with you. And that is a lie from the wicked one. But Ephesians chapter 2 verses 8 reminds us that our faith and hope is placed in someone who is unmovable and whose love for us is permanent. Our place in God has everything to do with what God has done through Christ and nothing to do with our works. My next Bible verse that I want to bring to your attention that I believe is very critical for every Christian to know is Romans chapter 5 verses 8, and it says this: "But God shows His love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." Now, in order to bring some context to this passage here in Romans, I want to highlight a few verses prior to verse 8. Verse 6 to 7 says this: "For while we were still weak, at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly. For one will scarcely die for a righteous person, though perhaps for a good person one would dare even to die." Verse 8, "But God shows His love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." So what is Paul saying? So Paul is basically saying that common love would hesitate to die for those who love, as opposed to us being enemies with God. Verse 10 says that we were in opposition to God. And as I read here in verse 8, when we were sinners, when we were at a place where we had absolutely nothing to offer God, we had nothing good to give to God, God decided that that was the right time, that was the appropriate time to die for humanity. God, through Christ, caught us at our weakest point in order to reveal to us the depth of His love for His people. And that's why I believe that this passage is essential, so that when you go through a season where you sense that no one loves you, no one cares for you, no one is there for you, when you read this passage, you will be reminded that God's love is so deep that while we were enemies, while you and I were in opposition to Him, while you and I had absolutely nothing to offer nor to give, He granted us His Son. He gave us something through love, in love, a love that supersedes any other love that any of us could actually experience in this life. And this is the great joy of being a believer And I believe that this passage of scripture is essential for all of us to know. And my third passage that I want to share with you all is in 2 Timothy chapter 1 verses 7, and it says this: "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." Now this passage is powerful, and the word fear here actually means to be timid or to be a coward. God has not given us a spirit of cowardness. And I think that it's very important for us to understand that when you are sensing the spirit of fear upon you, it's important that you and I ought not to operate in that spirit, knowing that it is not a spirit that God has given onto us. It's an anti-God spirit. But what has God given to his children? And I think this is critical, because anytime we walk in the flesh, we know how to identify what it looks like to walk in the flesh. And to walk in the flesh is to walk in fear. And to walk in fear is to walk in a way where you are no longer trusting God to guide nor to lead. God gave us a spirit of power, of love, and of a sound mind. Power to preach, to proclaim, to overcome sin and fear. God has given us a spirit of love, agape love, to love our neighbors as ourselves. And this only comes through the Spirit of God. But you actually have that present in you. And God has given us a sound mind, a mind that is led by the Spirit and not by the flesh. And to be led by the Spirit is to be led in power and love and faith. To be led by the flesh is to be led in fear and anxiety and worrisome. So when you are actually in a place where that is you, you are experiencing the spirit of fear, be reminded that that is not what God has deposited into you, and it has nothing to do with God's will for your life. But walk in power, walk in love, walk equipped with a sound mind. So yeah, guys, that's about it. Those are my 3 passages that I believe that every Christian ought to know. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Once again, until next time, you already know what's our love. Peace.